Civ nerds, VanBradley here, back with the stash because Firaxis Games has released 2 new updates to Civilization 7 this week, and I'm here to break them down for you. Patch 1.0.1 Patch 2, oh my goodness, starts off with the typical blurb that you see on top of a lot of patch notes. Hey, thank you for playing our game. We are collecting your feedback. These patch notes are based on your feedback, so keep sending it in to us. They even give you a Steam discussion forum link or a Civilization Discord server link as the kind of 2 best places to leave your feedback. So if you're playing the game and you have feedback to send into Firaxis, I would recommend clicking one of these 2 links and going and leaving it there. We also don't even get to our first patch note here before we have a controversy brewing in the console community. These patches, Patch 2 and Patch 3 for Patch 1.0.1, oh my goodness, they are only being pushed out to PC right now. This is not uncommon for any video game to push out their patches to PC first and then kind of catch them up with the consoles later. The reason for this is typically a certification process that goes into pushing updates on consoles that does not exist when you want to update via Steam for your PC players. Where this becomes a problem though is a lot of console players and some PC players purchased the game because of the promise of day one crossplay access, and they've had to disable crossplay because PC and consoles are on different versions of the patch right now. This isn't something that really affects me, but I've seen a lot of uproar in the console community, and you're right. If you bought this game because of the promise of day one crossplay between your friend who's on a PC and you who is on a console, and they have had to immediately disable that because of PC patches, I would be really annoyed. I can only assume they decided that updating the PC experience, making the gameplay experience better for some of their audience, was more important than kind of holding everything back just to keep crossplay enabled. That must have been the calculation, but if you are someone who bought Civ 7 for crossplay, just know that I hear you. It must be frustrating, and I would suspect that this will be a common theme moving forward. I really just don't understand why at this point they promised crossplay on day one. However, we're moving on. Let's talk about the patch notes. I'm not going to lie to you, I was really impressed with both of these patches. We're going to start at the top here. Fixed an issue causing ages in epic and marathon speed games to be shorter than intended. This was a really big problem people were having. They were hopping into marathon and epic speed games and everything was just out of sync. The pacing wasn't correct, so I'm glad they fixed that up. I know a lot of people, especially in my community, will leave comments all the time telling me they only play on marathon speed games, so I'm glad that experience is better for you. A really fun change here, city-states will now turn into friendly independent powers on the age transition instead of disappearing completely. So if you were the Sues of a city-state during the age transition, the whole thing would disappear and then new city-states for the new age would spawn kind of in their place. What's going to happen now is that city-state will still disappear. It will start with a settler. In the new age, it'll kind of settle back to where the location was, and that friendly independent power will be friendly. It's not going to be hostile towards you right away, which is just a fun little change. It adds some continuity between ages. What it does do is kind of removes the strategy that I like to use, which is kind of leave a city-state in place, knowing that I want to settle their spot once they're gone in the age transition, but I think overall this is a good change. We have a lot of changes, thank the lords, to the naval combat in Civ 7. If you'll remember our first couple deity streams, we were in naval combat and we could not figure out what was going wrong, why the combat strength values were all incorrect, how it was calculating. It seems like there were some bugged issues behind the scenes about units and their combat strength and whether they should or should not be taking damage, etc., etc. So I'm really glad they've patched up this naval combat. They've gone through great lengths to make naval combat more fun in Civ 7, and I just wasn't really having a good time with it because I couldn't figure out what was wrong with the combat strength values. Turns out it was indeed a bug all along, and those have been fixed now, which is awesome. Completing the final milestone of a legacy path no longer adds age progress in the modern age to ensure you have more time to complete a victory. This is a great first step to tackling what I think is really the only big issue with the age transitions, and that is the fact that at the end of the age, the pacing just feels really weird. This is a good first step in the modern age to at least make sure, hey, when you get to the end of the game, you have a better chance of that satisfying victory condition instead of accidentally getting a score victory because you pushed up the age progress too high. Small steps in the right direction for me, but this is a really good change that'll at least make the end game a little more engaging. Towns will now switch their focus back to growing town automatically if they are no longer eligible for their chosen focus. For example, if their population decreases until they are eligible again. I didn't know this was a problem. Small change though. Glad they're taking a look at these kind of smaller things and not just the bigger issues. If you were having towns and they were losing population and it was bugging out, that problem's fixed now, which is awesome. This one is a huge one for me, and and was a topic of conversation in the Civ 7 kind of content creator Discord. Everybody in there has been raging about the future Civic not being repeatable in all ages. It was in the Antiquity age, but for exploration and modern, you were not able to repeat the future Civic as intended, and it was causing all kinds of, controversy and problems. So I'm glad they've patched that up. What a fun fix. Marbazier in our Civ 7 Discord is going to be absolutely stoked. Fixed an issue after too many bonuses to growth where food needed for the next growth event became negative. I've never seen that. But that's pretty funny. I'm glad they fixed that up. That would be so. What does that even mean? Does that mean you just couldn't grow anymore? I don't even know what that means. Cool fix, though. Good work, Firaxis. Improvements to rail networks aimed at increasing the reliability of settlements connecting to the rail network over water by building ports. I'm so glad they are taking a look at this because I've had this problem in the modern age where I'm trying to build factories in my distant land cities, and to do that, they need to be in a city with a rail station that's connected to the capital via rail. Now, the way you connect it over water is by ports, but that connection wasn't working. It's not clear. There's still a lot of work to do on the user interface front, but if this patch is even doing a small amount towards what it says it's doing, I would be very, very thankful because it's been such a confusing part of the game for me, and it's been really frustrating to try and figure out, so this is an awesome change. Made improvements to the loyalty crisis in the Antiquity age, including giving the ability to purchase villas in towns during this crisis, giving another way to manage the happiness of your settlements. I just want to say this. I think the loyalty crisis or the happiness crisis, whatever it is in general, is absolutely batshit insane. The tooltips make no sense. It's definitely bugged. The amount of happiness it says it's going to take away versus the amount it does take away, it's still crazy. I'm glad that they put this in here. I'm glad you can buy villas in towns during the crisis now. That's a welcome change, just so you don't instantly lose everything. What I will say, though, is this whole kind of loyalty and happiness crisis is absolutely crazy, and it's very hard to understand what is going on and what you can do about it. So glad that they're adding options. I still think there's a lot to work to do with the crises in general, but on this crisis specifically, to make it intuitive and fun to play. Here's the note about crossplay multiplayer. I should have read the patch notes first before I kind of did my crossplay bit at the top. But yeah, just explaining that they're prioritizing expediting updates to the PC experience, so they have to disable crossplay from PC to consoles to do so. There are a lot of good AI changes here. Again, you have to play the game to know how the AI changes are working, but all of this sounds good to me. It is nice that they will offer their high-value cities a little less during peace deals. It is a little bit immersion breaking when you take one of their smaller towns and then to make peace, they just give you their capital, so I'm glad that's fixed up. I don't know exactly how I feel about ideologies playing such a big part of whether people want to go to war with you. I suppose that's realistic. I think on Deity, what I'll do, though, is find the people I don't want to go to war with and just choose their ideology, though, so they're happier with me. I'm not sure if that's like a strategy loop they're intending. However, what I will say is it's nice to have far more clarity about why people in the modern age would or would not want to go to war with you. It's nice to have a little bit of a buffer at the beginning of the age to not just be in, 27 wars instantly. So all of these changes to the AI around peace deals and kind of modern age AI warfare are all very welcome, and I think we'll kind of tackle some smaller but still kind of annoying parts of the Civ 7 experience. There are quite a few smaller user interface changes here. None of these are groundbreaking. They are all welcome. They all make the user interface look a little bit nicer. They don't really do anything to make the user interface kind of quality of life experience better. However, city projects no longer appearing to be purchasable is great. Your current religion is now displayed first in the belief picker tab. That's awesome. Lots of smaller updates to the UI here that we can all be happy about. We do not want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. These are welcome changes. These are improvements to the UI. It is only a first step, though, and the UI still needs a lot of work, but it's glad to see they are at least getting out the fixes they can make quickly, so that you're not kind of waiting for a bigger patch to come through with bigger updates. We will still have to wait for those bigger updates, but it's nice to get the smaller ones along the way as well. And that brings us to the end of 1.0.1 patch 2. And overall, I'm really impressed with this patch. It's not a big patch, but they only had the week of early access to work on it. And there's a lot of improvements here that are meaningful and that will make a difference to people. Most of the gameplay improvements I think are really, really great. For the AI and the UI, there's some small improvements there, and they're all very welcome. Again, we don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. These are improvements to the game. This is a more substantial patch than I would have expected, only kind of a week into my, Civ 7 experience with the public release. So I think this is wonderful, and they even patched the game again. So let's go take a look at 1.0.1 patch 3. 1.0.1 patch 3. Oh my goodness, we need to change this versioning. It's bigger because it's newer. This was only 2 days later. It only took them 2 days between patch 2 and patch 3 to do all of these improvements. 1.0.1 patch 3 kind of says right at the top here that they are addressing key areas of player reported issues that they can act on most quickly. So it's good to know that if they can act on something quickly, they are not just going to wait around for no reason. They're going to get that out to people. Please go to the Steam discussion forums and Civilization Discord server to leave your feedback. We will still have to wait for some of these bigger updates, but again, I feel really good knowing that the folks at Firaxis are at least getting quick issues out and solved quickly so that we can have an improved gameplay experience and they're not holding it back for no reason. So this is wonderful. I liked reading this a lot. A little less on the gameplay front in this patch, but a lot of cool quality of life updates here, or bug fixes that we can all get behind. Bombers can now deploy nuclear weapons when packed into an aerodrome, carrier, or squadron commander. Previously, only heavy bombers could do so. This is cool. Let's make nuclear gameplay a little more fun. I still don't know if I love the way nukes are implemented, with kind of the military victory being the way to kind of get into them. Anyways, though, I'm glad that if you kind of did choose to go that way, you got your bombers, you got your nukes, you're going to be able to use the nukes with the bombers instead of just heavy bombers. In what might be the biggest change to Civ 7 so far, addressed an issue. So it feels like this was a bug. I thought it was intentional, but it feels like this was a bug. Addressed an issue where some users reported experiencing specialists being removed from settlements when confirming the legacy cards from the age transition. Again, the user interface does very little to let you know if your specialists are still in or not in the settlements or what tiles they're on. You can only really check when you experience a growth event. However, this was like game breaking in some of the games I was playing. I was very confused. I was not sure why my specialists were leaving. I thought it was intentional and that I just hadn't figured something out. And it's very, very good that they are kind of fixing this issue. And now I have a whole new view of how specialists will work in my games. I feel a lot better about using them earlier on in games, knowing that they are going to stick around over the ages. So yeah, this is great. You know, I think in some games this was genuinely game breaking. So I'm glad that they fixed this up. This is an awesome change. If you were playing Isabella and you are not getting that 300 gold from discovering a natural wonder, fear not. That change has been fixed. You can now play Isabella and hoard your gold freely. You will not be bugged out of acquiring it. Another change that is absolutely monumental for me early on here addressed an issue that some users reported. I'm the reportee here. I reported this, where the factory was unavailable when a distant land settlement was connected to a homeland settlement in the modern age. Trying to get my factories figured out in my distant land cities in the modern age has been a giant migraine for me, and it seems like between the fixes to the ports or whatever it was in 1.1.2, these versions are awful. In patch number 2, and now this change in patch number 3, it seems like we kind of got a fix sandwich on both ends of this problem. So I'm hoping that when I hop into the modern age on stream soon, we are not still having these issues. More issues with sea, trade, and rail connections on coastal cities in the city center. These are all parts of the same problem I've been talking about, where I cannot figure out how to connect all of this stuff together. It seems like there were bugs that were preventing it and not gameplay stuff, which isn't ideal, but I'm glad they fixed it up. So hopefully when we hop into game, all of this connecting things via sea and rail is going to be a lot easier for us. Now, this user interface update in patch 3 is far more substantial and includes a variety of fixes that I had actually downloaded a mod for. Everything highlighted in blue right now are either little bug fixes or like improvements to font size or alignment, or really small things that are all kind of amazing. I'm glad they are being patched up and taken a look at. Again, these are things you can fix quickly, so I'm glad they are being fixed. They're not really why I'm here, though. I'm glad that this is all improved and it needs to be improved, but everything below the blue here is awesome. Added a notification for when an enemy attacks a player's unit in single player. Thank God. How many times in Civ 7 so far have you had a unit, a scout, you've put him out to heal, and then you don't even get a notification that he's being attacked until he dies again? This is a great little quality of life improvement. I'm very, very happy with this. And finally, the big change is here at the bottom. If you do not know who Sucratact is, Sucratact makes UI mods for Civilization. His kind of simple UI adjustments is a mod that I ran for the entirety of the time I played Civ 6, and I had already downloaded and started using it for Civilization 7. They have taken inspiration from this mod and placed it in the game as default so everyone can have access to it. They did a little thank you for the inspiration, Sucratact, in here. There's always a lot of tension between modders and the game developers. If someone makes a mod that improves upon the game, but then the game kind of takes that and puts it in the game, is it copying? You can't really steal something from your own IP, but it feels a little weird. Anyways, what's happened though, Sucratact made a mod. It was awesome. I had been running it in in our streams, and then they kind of took inspiration from that mod as noted here and added these features into the game. Added building icons to the plot tooltips with their status, so when you hover over a tile, it will tell you the building icons and everything, which is awesome. Added wonder icons to the tooltip with the gameplay effect, so now when you hover over a wonder, it'll tell you what it does. You don't gotta like search it up or do anything weird, which is amazing. This is my favorite change. They have made resource icons larger on improved tiles and smaller on unimproved tiles. So if you are working a tile and collecting those yields, they will be bigger. If you are not working a tile and not collecting those yields, they will be smaller. Just a very nice visual change that makes it so much more clear what is happening in your cities. Overall, I think this is a really good set of patches. We got 2 patches in 2 days. They are full of kind of smaller fixes, but fixes that are noticeable. They are appreciated. It leaves me with a lot of confidence that they will be able to patch up some of the core aspects of this game fairly quickly if they are already working at this cadence. It will be interesting to see what they place on their roadmap. A couple of times now they have promised a roadmap for these kinds of patches. We have our 2 kind of bigger patches still coming in March. It'll be interesting to see what is kind of, put in those 2 patches as well. So overall, definitely the best we could have hoped for about a week into the gameplay experience. A lot of fixes that are again noticeable and helpful. A lot of bugs that were kind of causing me a lot of grief have now been patched up. There's still a lot to do for this game, but I'm optimistic after a week that we're starting the process of getting a lot of that work done. Even with these 2 patches, the experience playing Civilization 7 will be noticeably improved over not having them, which again, I think is the best you can hope for a week on. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. My name, of course, is VanBradley. Can't wait to keep bringing you more Civilization content in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.